Hello, everybody, and welcome to the D.I.R.T. Data in Real Time, the show where we talk through the pops and the drops, the price risers and fallers over the last 2 weeks from various hotel markets around the world. We dissect why we think the prices are moving the way they did, and our goal, as always, is to make you the smartest person in the room when you walk into your meeting this morning. My name is Blake Reiter. I am the Director of Hospitality Research, and with me is...
Hello, my name is Daniel Foreman. I'm a commercial strategist here at Lighthouse.
Everything we are going to be doing today is in US dollars. We are recording this on February 4th. The data was pulled yesterday, and let's get right into it. First and foremost, St. Moritz, Switzerland, Saturday, March 7th, prices up 31% from an already high $1,665 up to almost $2,200. Crazy. I think this is being driven by the Endagen Ski Marathon. It's the biggest cross-country skiing event in Switzerland. Great sign that they could actually drive pricing this much at this point, because this event is always the second Sunday in March. Daniel, I can say to you, when is it going to be in 6 years? And you can tell me right now when it's going to be. And they knew what was happening on this day, and they were still able to drive pricing that high. Amazingly done. Good for St. Moritz. Talk to me about El Paso.
Yeah, El Paso. So this is a fun one. If you've been watching the news, BTS has just announced their huge worldwide tour. And yes, El Paso, Texas is going to be one of the stops on this tour. Now, this is such an interesting one that we're going to come back in a couple of minutes and we're going to do a deep dive on El Paso. But just know that we're going to talk all about why BTS is coming to El Paso and why rates are jumping so much.
Fun fact. So just before we move on to Sapporo, Japan, fun fact is that last year El Paso hosted Coldplay, and there were visitors from every single state to Coldplay except for one state. Do you know what that state is, Daniel?
I don't. Who hates Coldplay?
What are you saying?
Who hates Coldplay?
Vermont apparently hates Coldplay. Vermont, only state that did not send someone to see Coldplay in El Paso. But last year, Coldplay. This year, BTS. What is next? We will talk about it. Up next is Sapporo. Daniel, you got some good insights on this one. Talk to us.
Yeah, Sapporo is very interesting. So here we're looking at Sunday, March 15th, and we've seen gains from $257 all the way up to $494. Now, what I think is going on, and I shamelessly stole this from your notes, Blake, but I do think that skiing is a big factor here. The skiing in Sapporo is very, very good right now. And you've got a very favorable currency exchange between the US dollar and the Japanese yen. So it really wouldn't surprise me if at least part of this pricing increase is driven by demand increases from wealthy travelers coming from the States over to Sapporo to enjoy the fresh pow pow, as it's called.
Totally, because apparently skiing in Colorado is just the worst it's been in, I've read, 30 years. So
Ouch.
When you don't have your Colorado skiing, I bet there's a bunch of skiers that are probably going to Sapporo instead. And frankly, I bet the hoteliers in Sapporo realize that what's happening in Colorado could happen to them, so they better get their money down and in while they can. Moving on, Palo Alto, Saturday, May 16th, up 123%, 276 to 614. Friday and Saturday of the same weekend are also up. This is the weekend of the big race, the Bay to Breakers in San Francisco. So that is in San Francisco, and we're talking about Palo Alto. So what I think is happening here, this is an event that has historically had a pretty wide range of attendees. In 2015, it was 50,000. In 2025, it was 25,000. In 1986, they set a world record for being the world's largest foot race with 110,000 participants. So if you're at Palo Alto and you know there's a big wide range of outcomes, you're a revenue manager, you're sitting back, you're waiting, you're looking at the demand indicators, you're looking at pickup. And when the signals are there, you drive rate. And I think that's what's happening here, because that's why I think rate is popping at this juncture. And bring it on home, Daniel. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What's going on there on April 23rd? That's driving rate to triple.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is one of my favorites on this list because the story is very interesting. This is obviously the draft, right? This is Thursday, April 23rd. We've got these huge jumps in pricing. Now, what makes the NFL draft so unique and different from just, say, a standard event, like even an NFL game? The reason why it's different is the draft is very front-loaded, I would call it. And what I mean by that is night one, which is Thursday night, is when all the action is, right? That's round one of the draft. That's when everybody wants to be in Pittsburgh. So the NFL and the city of Pittsburgh have this really unique challenge as far as events go. Their challenge is, how do we keep people to stay in the city? How do we keep them Friday and Saturday and Sunday? So you're starting to see all these events that they're adding on to the NFL draft. They've got a 5K the morning of Sunday after, I think, on day 3 or 4 of the draft. And then they have live music on Saturday. So these cities are really, really trying to turn this into a large event. And I think they're trying to kind of recapture some of the magic that happened in Detroit back in 2024, where that city, when they hosted the draft, they had over 770,000 attendees, which really helped the local economy. And that would be huge for Pittsburgh.
That would be huge for Pittsburgh. So that wraps our pops. Let's talk about our drops. These are the negative movements. We will start with Cortina d'Ampezzo. Obviously, a super, super hot market right now because the Olympics is happening and they're hosting the Olympics. But not only are they hosting the Olympics, which run until February 22nd, but they're also hosting the Paralympics, which run through March 15th. And the day we're talking about for our drop is Saturday, March 21st. Rates are down 18%. So I see this, and I think Cortina was probably hoping for some spillover demand following the conclusion of the Paralympics, again, concluding on March 15th. They're hoping that there would be some spillover through the following weekend. It's not materializing, so I think they're just pulling rate down in hopes that they get people to potentially extend their trips and have some spillover. That's what I think is going on here. Annapolis, Maryland, this is an interesting one. So this is the Friday of Annapolis St. Patrick's Parade weekend. This is a big deal if you're not from Annapolis. Again, Friday, May 6th, rate is down 18% from $183 to $149. To put it into scale, 45,000 people attended in 2023 when they reported the attendance. It more or less turns Annapolis into an attraction for the mid-Atlantic. And the Saturday of that weekend, so the day after we're talking about, the Friday, the Saturday is called the Holi. It's a big kickoff party that starts in the evening. So my guess is why rate came down that Friday is that they're not getting the pickup that they want to see for that weekend. They want people to extend their trip to Friday through the end of the weekend, and it just wasn't there for the Friday. So they pull rate down to try to make people come a day earlier and have a whole weekend in Annapolis. Daniel, Jaipur, India, what's going on?
Yeah, you've told us all about Holi, Blake, but let's take a step back and talk about Holi. So in Jaipur, India, here we're looking at Tuesday, March 3rd, where we've seen almost 40% rate drops for the Holi festival. Now, this, interestingly enough, is one that we talked about just 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, we were talking about this huge jump up to $287 for this religious festival, and now we're seeing the rates come back down. So what the heck is going on? Here's my 2 cents on what I think is happening in Jaipur. This is a religious festival. It is free for people to attend, and I just don't think that the whole profit motive is quite as strong for an event like this as, say, a music festival. So I think that hoteliers may have pushed a little bit too hard here. They probably saw some resistance, and now they're backing off on those rates just because they're not seeing either the pickup or the rates that they thought that they were going to get for this religious festival. And then next up, we have Palm Desert, California. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about Stagecoach and we talked about festival fatigue. This week, let's take it from a little bit different angle, right? This is weekend number 1 of Coachella. Now, why would rates be dropping so much for Coachella, especially now that they just announced that the 2026 passes are sold out? That's a big deal, right? Because they can fit up to 125,000 people per day at Coachella, which is absolutely crazy. So why would hoteliers be dropping rate? There's a lot of pressures on hotel pricing. What I mean by that is, A, ticket prices are already so high for this event that if you've got a limited budget, what's one place you're going to try to trim? It might be your hotel budget, right? Also, too, you've got a lot of people that are now starting to rent camper vans or convert their van into a little traveling hotel, right? And they're staying at little RV parks and stuff like that for Coachella. And just in general, I think hoteliers may have pushed a little bit too hard in the first place, right? $1,500 is very, very, very expensive for a music festival like this. So I am totally not surprised to see rates coming down a little bit. And now that everybody has their passes and they're not seeing pickup, I think that might kind of signal that, hey, this is probably all the occupancy you're really going to see for Coachella. So that kind of rounds out the list. That's what I think is going on with our drops. And I'll turn it over to you, Blake, to kind of segue us into our headliner for this week.
Yes, our deep dive for the week. Let's dive into this one a little bit more. Daniel teased this before, the El Paso, Texas event. BTS is coming through El Paso, and I want to talk a little bit about the impact that K-pop acts have when they're touring outside of Korea, because this is actually a really big deal. In 2021, November and December, there was a 4-night residency BTS put on in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. At the time, they achieved the biggest single venue concert engagement by any act in almost a decade. And that was in late 2021 when the world was still feeling the effects of COVID. According to Billboard, the 4-night stand sold 214,000 tickets and grossed $33.3 million. And at the time, it was the biggest box office draw at a single venue since Roger Waters earned $38 million. And that was over 9 shows at the Estadio Monumental in Buenos Aires in 2012. So this is a big deal for El Paso. Other effects that K-pop has had in the States, KCON Los Angeles 2023, the Associated Press called this event an extravagant microcosm of K-pop's macro influence. 140,000 fans from all over the world came to the Los Angeles Convention Center. Fox Los Angeles was quoted as saying nearly 40% of attendees came from outside of California. So these are events that drive significant lodging demand, impression demand. When they were in London, BTS, they played Wembley Stadium. They sold more than 115,000 tickets, grossed $13.5 million according to the World Bank Group. They play a different group, Blackpink. They played 2 nights in Paris at the Stade de France, 110,000 fans in Las Vegas. This is a great stat, Daniel. This is one of my favorite stats I read while researching this. BTS played 4 shows in Las Vegas in April 2022. And according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the Motel 6 near Allegiant Stadium was offering rooms for $338 a night during the first BTS concert weekend in Las Vegas. And when they were in Las Vegas, per Arirang News, which is the flagship English language news service from Korea's Arirang TV, they said once accommodation and other goods and services purchased by fans staying in Las Vegas are included, the overall economic impact of the BTS concert estimated to be around $162 million from that show, that little residency in Las Vegas. Okay, Daniel. So we talked about Paris, we talked about Vegas, we talked about London, we talked about Los Angeles. These are big primary tier 1 cities. And now they're going to be in El Paso. And again, nothing against El Paso, but what's going on here?
Yeah, nothing against El Paso. But that definitely caught my eye when BTS announced that they were coming to El Paso. Now, El Paso has a little bit of a track record. Last year, they hosted Coldplay, which I think you mentioned, and they were actually able to bring out about 90,000 fans across the 2 days that Coldplay was there. But still, it's a little bit of a shocker when you have this huge boy band, this Korean boy band that's just so world famous, coming to El Paso. Now, I have encountered this in the past before, Blake, and let me give you a very fast anecdote. Back when I was a revenue manager, I noticed that for whatever reason, Tulsa, Oklahoma used to get way better musical acts than Oklahoma City. And that confused me for the longest time until I zoomed out and I looked at the map and I kind of began to understand that it's not all about just the city that's hosting it, right? It's about pulling in guests from the broader region. So I'm going to throw a map up on the screen that I created just an hour or two ago that kind of helps to illustrate this. But if BTS has their concert in El Paso, it's not just about serving just El Paso, right? They're going to bring in folks from Las Cruces, New Mexico. They're going to bring in folks from Hobbs, New Mexico, Juarez across the border, Midland, Odessa Metro. There's actually well over 1 million people, over 2 million people, in fact, that are kind of within this 5 or 6 hour driving range to get to El Paso. So that's why I think El Paso was selected. It's a lot more strategic than you may think at first when you just see El Paso. This concert's going to serve a lot more people than you think, and it's going to be convenient for a lot more people than you think. So I think that's why this is a pretty smart move by BTS, actually.
Totally. Huge move for them. Huge for the city of El Paso. And one last quote before we finish. Jorge Vasquez, who's the University of Texas at El Paso's executive director of special events, he was quoted as saying, "I dare to say we have put El Paso on the map of the biggest entertainment acts in the world. Now the world knows El Paso. Again, referring to Coldplay last year and having great success. Now BTS. What's coming in 2027? Time will tell. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been the D.I.R.T. Data in Real Time, part of the Spotlight podcast from Lighthouse. Listen and subscribe to the podcast, to the Spotlight, wherever you get your podcasts. We do this every 2 weeks. We examine how prices moved in various markets over the last 2 weeks. Daniel and I will be dissecting what we think is driving those pricing movements, and then we're going to do a deep dive into one of them and give you all the information you need to walk into your meeting and be the smartest person sitting in that meeting, and you will get all that in 10 to 15 minutes while you commute to work. If you want to learn more about Lighthouse data, please visit our website at mylighthouse.com. It has been a pleasure. We will see you in 2 weeks. My name is Blake Reiter.
I'm Daniel Foreman.
And we will see you next time on The D.I.R.T.
The D.I.R.T.